Welcome to I Could Talk to You All Day. I'm Lauren Lefkowitz, recovering workaholic, perfectionist, and people pleaser.
And I'm John Spears, emerging from playing small, getting caught up in the inertia of life, and always being on.
I Could Talk to You All Day is a show for executives and emerging leaders. This is not just another leadership podcast. We're here to talk about what it means to be a leader while also being human.
So join us for raw, vulnerable, and probably pretty funny conversations about shifting from surviving at work and home to thriving in the life you've always wanted. Let's get the conversation started.
John Spears.
Lauren Lefkowitz.
How's it going over there, John?
I am doing really well over here. How are you?
Great. I am on the up.
I love it.
Yeah. I have, it's been a summer of doing hard things, which it turns out we can do, as Glennon Doyle tells us.
We can do it.
And also, it's really hard to do the hard things.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm proud of myself for doing the hard things and not just backing away from them. And I'm tired. What's happening over there?
You know, I think one of the reasons I have likewise, it has not only been a hard summer. This has not had been like the summer of like, you know, everyone's like going to see Beyonce and Taylor Swift and Barbie. And I'm here like trudging through the mud. I am not having a Renaissance summer or a hot girl summer. I am having a like, let's trudge through the mess kind of a summer. But I'm really actually so grateful for that because I have in this process been able to learn new skills, practice new things that I've been working on. And one of those things that I think has been so transformative for me is the ability to not react immediately and to one, sit with difficult emotions, two, to sit with myself. God, I mean, I know I'm a lot to other people, but if you think I'm a lot to myself. To be able to like just sit with myself with all the stuff happening, the sort of chaos internally, the overthinking, the catastrophizing has been really amazing. And also to let things not always be tied up in a bow. I'm someone who likes closure, who likes everything to be in its own little compartment. I may not like be like this in my house, but like in my life, I like things to be put away and neat. I do not like drama. I don't like things open. And so this process of going through the last really hard, probably 6 to 8 months has finally, after all that practice and work, been able to sit with things. I've been able to have difficult conversations with people and them not be resolved immediately. And I'm able to like go about my day without being all in it. And I think that is why I'm so much better. Not that all the circumstances have changed, because they haven't in some cases, but because I am able to regulate my emotions better. I'm able to sort of create some distance. I'm able to recognize finally that I am not my feelings, that because I have a feeling or an experience or an emotion, that doesn't have to consume me and turn into a mood that stays with me. So sorry for the long answer, but I think that is the contributing factor to my being really, really, really good over here.
I'm smiling because I'm having like a similar and opposing experience, which is that I am my feelings.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of years not being in my feelings and having them be separate from me and having them be like what felt like the weak part of me. And so I compartmentalized, I shoved feelings in a closet. I've talked about before, I carry around my backpack of crap and like, maybe it's heavy, but I got stuff to do.
Yeah.
And so I have always disconnected from feelings in a way that is like I have breakfast, lunch, dinner, and feelings, right? Like they're all temporary. They all happen one at a time. And then when I'm done with them, I'm done with them. And so this summer especially has been about like integrating my feelings into my being and not calling them separate from me. And I think, as a pendulum goes, right, I was all the way on one side of like, I am not my feelings. They're over there separate from me. And then I swung all the way to the other side of like, I am only my feelings. And this is how I shall live forever.
Yeah.
And which doesn't feel good. Right. And the middle of the pendulum, and there's still, I think, always a swing because we are not static as human beings. The middle of the pendulum for me is like, I want to be in a place where I acknowledge my feelings. I allow my feelings so that they can go through me. And like live, right, and have their space. And then once they've gone through me, I can emerge on the other side.
Yeah. And
I think I just changed our topic for this this week.
Let's do it. Hey, let's
to
go
feelings.
with it.
I think we'll come back to our other topic another time, which was going to be accountability. But I think with you talking about feelings and me talking about feelings, let's talk about feelings today.
Let's talk about feelings. I am all about that because I have lots of them. And unlike you, I have lived in my feelings all my life. They have been really consuming and strong and very real to me. And so I would love to talk about how we've experienced this differently, kind of the journey that I'm on to be able to acknowledge and be with my feelings, but not allow them to sort of consume me. And I think hearing your perspective can be really, really helpful for people out there who have a similar experience to you.
Yeah. And to you. I think I love when you and I come in from different avenues. There are so many ways that you and I are synchronous and that we have really similar viewpoints and experiences. And I think this is an area where we are so different. And I came into this life with the understanding, self-created understanding, and, created by circumstance and environment and all of that. But creating this expectation that I am here to serve others. So I've got to keep myself in check, keep myself neutral, keep myself sturdy and resilient. And that resilience meant for me not being in my feelings. I think a lot of leaders take that responsibility on. And so it's really only in the last few years since I've explored different kinds of coaching and therapy support for myself. I'm working with a trauma therapist right now, which has been very feelings opening. And but it's only in the last few years that my brain and my body have allowed themselves a connection in the area of feelings, in the area of like letting my heart into those things and not just like stuffing it aside for like when I have time to deal with my feelings.
Yeah.
And so I always came across and I've talked about this before, that like I have this sense that I can't be seen as capable and vulnerable at the same time. And I feel that in my work, that like and it's my own expectation when I do get vulnerable with my clients, without of course like putting my stuff on them and saying like help me, right? Like I have my coaches for that. But when I do share some vulnerabilities with my clients or relate to them on what they're going through, it is so well received.
Totally.
And so
same.
Yeah. And so the combination of seeing that and the combination of that with the work that I've done on and for myself has opened up this world where feelings can integrate. And I see so much power in that. And it's something that I work with my clients on a lot, is like, you you can be a super powerful leader. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but you can be a super powerful leader and also be a human being who has and expresses feelings.
Totally. Yes.
So tell me a little bit about like where you've come from a feelings perspective.
Yeah, I was really struck by what you said when you talked about sort of like your experience growing up and how things happen. I think we kind of share some of that same premise. You know, I grew up, and I think this is just sort of who I am, really in touch with feeling, with experiences, with, you know, maybe you call it an empath, maybe you call it hypervigilance, you can call it a lot of stuff. But the reality was my childhood was so chaotic that I was really, really present to my own stuff, my own reactions, feelings, emotions, but also to everyone else's. So I was always aware. And I think a lot of times that is my superpower. I can walk into a room and be like, whoa, something's off here. You know, I'm like, I can tell where people are just by being with them. And so it is an incredibly powerful tool to have in my toolbox. But what can often happen is because I'm so sensitive to that stuff, I can often take on other people's things. I can confuse that with my own emotions. And because I am an emotional guy, I am super emotional. I'm sensitive. I cry probably almost every day, not out of sadness, but because I'm really in touch with those parts of my body and my kind of soul, spirit, mind, that I need that stuff to move through me. And so for whatever reason, that has always been so present. And I think the challenge for me, we kind of were talking about this, is that I haven't been able in the previous 40 years of my life. I'm 43 now, but I probably started working on this about 3 years ago. I haven't been able to distinguish my feelings or emotions from who I am. And so when I feel sad, when I have a feeling of sadness, or I have a feeling of anger, it becomes me. It consumes me. It sort of is the lens through which I see everything. And so my work, unlike yours, is to be able to separate those things from myself so that I don't take it on, right? I'm learning to say, instead of I am sad, to say I am having sad feelings. I have the, you know, I am experiencing this, instead of I not, because for me, it just was a lifetime of putting on the cloak of whatever emotion it was, which then very easy to kind of go into tailspin, very easy to get consumed by something. And there's all this great data. I don't want to talk about it now, but maybe I will. There's all this great data out there that says feelings only last for about 90 seconds in our bodies. If we can move through them, if we can acknowledge them, etc. If they get stuck, they can turn into moods that can last a day, several days, weeks, months. I mean, moods can even last years and decades. And so this idea of wherever you are in the spectrum, maybe you're more like me, maybe you're more like Lauren, maybe you're somewhere in the middle, wherever you are, this idea of being able to work with feelings and emotions in a way that's intelligent, and practice around them is like, I think, the mastery of being able to allow emotions to move through us, to see things as they really are, and to really live a fulfilled, meaningful life.
As you were talking, I realized where our similarity is. Because I also have always been incredibly empathetic, super hypervigilant about how I am being, how people are being around me, looking out for other people's sensitivities. And I think mine that was different was that I didn't allow my own in there. That I was so busy looking out for everybody else's. And I did take on other people's stuff. And that was actually one of my most challenging facets of becoming a coach full time, was learning how to not carry my clients' stuff with me all the time, without, just becoming cold, right? Like that's not the goal either, right? But to really balance that. But it's interesting to me that with both of us being more on the empath side of things, with both of us being in hypervigilance, that you also are a person who's always been in your feelings, and I'm always a person I'm a person who's always been like outside of my own feelings. So, you know, the same kinds of things can lead us to different outcomes, which is really, really interesting. I also loved what you said about I am versus I am having, or I'm experiencing, or there's when you learn about the chakras of the body, which I'm just learning about.
Which, by the way, I mean, to hear you even say that, Lauren, is really hysterical. I mean, I don't want to completely out you like as a whatever. So if you want to share what you shared with me earlier, you can. But I'm like, to hear you talk about chakras and other stuff, I'm like, who is this woman? You are not the same person you were when we met several years ago.
Well, now I can't keep the secret, right? So in the last few years, and especially in the last year, I've done a lot of exploration with my spirituality, with my connection to the universe. And I have recently purchased crystals, and I'm feeling their freaking energy, right? Like I'm getting more and more off the beaten path in my elder years. I say that like I'm 97. But right now my crystals are recharging by having sound bowls playing in the background. So, you know, we grow and change.
I just love how right before we started recording, you're like, hey, do you hear anything? And I was like, no. And you're like, okay, good, because my sound bowls, my crystals are recharging by sound bowls. And I was like, who are you? What is happening? I mean, you know what? I'm all for it. I think I am 100% for exploration of all different kinds of things. I think it's super important. And for me, you know, I grew up very religious. I think I'm much more spiritual now than I was. I don't go to church anymore. But having that space, and I know we're not talking about this, maybe we should talk about it in an episode, but having that space to explore and to figure out meaning, to find what works for us is so important, and ultimately helps us with feelings, helps us process feelings, have perspective, move through things in a really powerful way.
Yeah. So thanks for outing me.
You're welcome.
I'll take it. I mean, it's funny though, because, you know, since we're talking about feelings, if I had bought crystals 3 years ago, they would have just been pretty rocks. They wouldn't have been meaningful, because I am more in touch with my feelings, my emotions, my being. They are meaningful to me.
Yeah.
And so when I went shopping for crystals, like there were certain ones that called out to me that I don't think I would have had that experience. I do remember once, many years ago, I went into a crystal shop on a vacation and I got dizzy while I was in there. And I left because I was like, maybe there's something in the air or some fragrance or something that doesn't agree with me. I was not ready for that.
Yeah.
But in speaking of the chakras, which I'm just beginning to learn about. No. This is a fun conversation. In speaking of the chakras, we as humans tend to go with I am as a statement, right? Yeah. And that is what we speak of ourselves. And I think that's I don't remember which chakra that is, because I'm still learning. Maybe you know.
I don't.
But there's the different chakras express, I think, I feel, I am, I say. And if we're always coming from I am, and we're identifying our whole person as being our feelings, right? I am angry is very different than I am feeling angry.
Yes, totally.
I am sad is very different than I am feeling sad. And when I think about what I am and what I aim to be, I aim to be someone who is full of joy, who also experiences anger and sadness and pain and grief and all of those things, because I want to be able to have the full expression of who I am. I also want my foundational being to find joy.
Yeah.
And so you were talking, and I want to get back to this, about some data on how feelings last only 90 seconds. And I recently saw an Instagram video. I'd like to say I was reading some research, but it all
some
comes from
peer review
Instagram
article
videos for me, right? An online article that was given to me in audio form with a video attached, about the guy was asking the question, did you have a bad 5 minutes
Mm-hmm.
and then you let it go?
Mm-hmm.
Or did you have a bad 5 minutes and that dictated the rest of your day, your week, your month, or your year? And it's true that the feelings come in like 30, 60, 90-second increments. The conversations come in 5-minute spans. And then we decide, whether we're doing it consciously or not, we decide to live in those feelings or not live in those feelings, or anything in between. Let those feelings go through me, give myself some time for those feelings. But say more about that. Say more about that 90-second set of feelings, how we carry it, all of that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, I have found, I don't know if this is going to answer your question, but I have found when I accept I'm having an emotion or a feeling, when I accept it and I locate it in my body, I identify what it is, it moves through me much quicker than if there's resistance. I have also been working on resistance. I find that I resist a lot of things, and emotions are one of those things that resist, which are probably why I feel them so intensely, because they just want to be seen. They just want to be experienced. They're signals, of some sort. I've been using this with my clients a lot, is think emotions, lots of things are signals. And I like to think of emotions as you're driving on the highway and you begin to go off the road a little bit, and you have those like, you have that kind of thing. Emotions are great ways to show us like if boundaries are being violated, are we aligned with something, does something need to be corrected, does something need to be addressed? And we ignored that part of ourselves. We lose so much of that body intelligence and that emotional intelligence that is sort of built with us innately. And so I am trying really hard. I'm trying really hard. No, I am working on and practicing on being able to accept emotions as they come and do a few things with them, locate them in my body. I find that emotions are often tied to physical sensations that I'm having, right? When you have joy, it feels effervescent. It feels bubbly. You can kind of feel it in your stomach. When you're nervous, it's this tingly kind of butterflies. When there's anger, you probably feel them on the back of your neck, kind of like your kind of hairs are standing up. So being able to locate emotions and name them and say, hey, this is this emotion, has been really helpful. And maybe this is what's beneath that emotion is helpful for me to be able to move through them. And when I haven't done that in the past, they kind of harden, right? They kind of attach themselves to me. And sometimes I've been able to revisit that experience and move it through me. And a lot of times in the past, I haven't, and it's just sort of recycled through me over and over again. And we've been talking a lot about emotions and feelings, and I think a really helpful definition, according to the Conscious Leadership Group, which is an organization I really love, and they talk a lot about feeling all your feelings, which is sort of where I'm getting this from their book, The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership, talks about emotion is just energy in motion. And if we block it, we really create some stagnation, which is really funny because we were talking about that before this. But when we feel it, it moves through us. When we accept it, when we locate it, and are with it, much more likely for that to last just 90 seconds as opposed to codifying into a mood that then is like stuck with us for a while.
Yes. And I'm a little bit laughing over here as you're talking about identifying emotions and feelings, and because it is legitimately the hardest for me to get specific in my feelings. I can identify the emotion. I'm sad, I'm angry, I'm happy, right? But when my coach in particular asks me, what does that feel like?
Mm.
And you talked about butterflies in your stomach or that like tightness in your neck, or my brain is like sad.
Mm.
Right. And like, but what is that? What is sad? What does sad feel like in your body? And then I'll talk about the doing. I'm crying, or I can't talk, right? That's the doing.
Yeah.
The in between, which is that's the work for me. And I think it's for me why trauma work is so hard, because you have to get in so deeply to your feelings, is those things. The tears are coming and my eyes feel like they're filled with water, and they're never going to stop being filled with water.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That is a description of the feeling. Right. If I close my eyes, then I can feel my temples pulsating.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I feel a lump in my throat that seems like it's never going to go away. Those are things I've identified that are happening through me, to me, with me, that are very hard for me to express,
Mm-hmm.
because I can get to like the top end emotion. But to get into the feelings and what that's doing to my body and how that feels in my heart, I think that's really hard for a lot of people who have lived practical lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I think our audience is filled with practical people who have lived practical lives, who go to work every day, have a lot of accountability. Maybe they come home to other accountabilities, families, volunteer work, aging parents, whatever it is. And they're always on for those people. So there isn't that time that we make for ourselves to be in our feelings and to process them. So then for someone like me, who's working on figuring out what my feelings mean and how they show up and how they actually feel, I then walk around with the pulsating temples and the lump in my throat while I'm shoving down all of the emotion in my backpack of crap.
Mm-hmm.
And they just become part of me. So it's like I always have a lump in my throat. My temples are always pulsating. And that's not true. It's that they're pulsating because I'm suppressing, releasing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a big lesson for me has been in learning to express those emotions, learning to figure out, is this 90 seconds of a feeling that I'm carrying forward because I'm not allowing it to go through me? Or is this like depression? Or is this anxiety? Or
Mm-hmm.
is this a situation where I need some time to grieve or some time to celebrate, or, whatever it is. And as grown up as I feel in so many areas of my life, and as easy as it is for me to work with other people on this, when I come back to myself and I come back to my being, processing those emotions is so challenging for me. And it's something that I really value in our friendship, is that like sometimes we've been on the phone with, this happened either last week or the week before, and I just started crying and you didn't try to fix it.
Yeah.
And my whole life has been like me standing in the mirror and telling myself to stop crying because I've got things to do. And it turns out that if we allow for it, I think there is room in all of our lives to be with and process our feelings. And a lot of my life, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on what I'm going to say next, a lot of my life has been about numbing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know, if you've never heard that term, and I really hadn't heard it in the context of just daily life until a few years ago, numbing is the thing that we do so that we don't have to feel our feelings. We can numb through eating or drinking or drugs or watching TV, working too much or running, right? Like any form of avoiding our feelings can be numbing behavior. And it may be stuff we enjoy, but it's stuff that takes our mind off of, so that we aren't thinking about, we aren't dealing with, we aren't feeling. And I love using TV as an expression of numbing, right? If I am like trying to avoid all the things, I will plop down on the couch and be in front of the TV and binge watch myself through some entire series. I've just started watching The Simpsons, and I'm like from the beginning, and it's like 30 something seasons. So this is going to be part of the rest of my life. But I noticed when I sat down to watch it that I was like, I am so excited to watch The Simpsons. Like, this is my young adulthood to now coming into play with. And I'm remembering all these inside jokes I had with friends about the early episodes. Those were like in my college years. And I'm choosing that.
Mm-hmm.
And the last couple of weeks when I wasn't feeling my best, I was numbing with TV. I don't even really remember what I watched the last couple of weeks.
Yep.
Right. So there's a different, you can be doing the same thing with two different purposes.
Totally. Yes.
Right. And avoiding by doing the thing, or powerfully choosing to do the thing because you're also dealing with and living inside of your life.
Right. The distinction I think there is because I like to binge watch TV too. And that doesn't mean I'm necessarily numbing. I think the distinction is when you're doing that activity to distract yourself, to not deal with it, to push it away, that's when numbing occurs. If you're doing it because you enjoy it, because you need a break, it's great to be able to like have a hard workout, indulge in some ice cream, indulge in a good meal. But if you're doing it so you're not having to feel or experience the emotion or the feeling, that's the distinction. And I think bringing that awareness is so important to us so that we can have the choice, right? I think so often we do things without even knowing that we're doing. We get in these patterns. And so for us as leaders to be able to identify what's behind what's the intention why we're doing something is so powerful, and saying, oh, do I need to stop doing this thing that's numbing me and just be with my feelings?
Yeah. I noticed for myself that I almost always can tell in retrospect when I've been numbing, right? It's hard to notice in the moment, but I will go through a day where I don't have a lot of responsibilities and realize at the end of the day that like, I have no idea where the time went.
Yeah.
Because I just needed to like numb out the day. And there's actually not anything unhealthy about numbing when your body and your brain need a break from feeling all the feelings and doing all the doing. It's when that's the habit. It's when that's your only go-to. And the only way for you to cope is to get into some sort of numbing behavior. That's when you want to be looking at like, hey, what can I handle differently?
Yeah. And sometimes I don't have the capacity and I numb, and I know I do it. It's I know I'm doing it. What I think in response to what you're going to say, what you asked earlier, is for me, when I have the sense that I'm doing something to numb, that's a real indication that I need to be with my feelings and be with my emotions and just be with them. I think so often, at least in my own experience, I try to fix them, try to make it better, try to move through it. I try to get it done quickly. So I have this, again, perfectly nice and neat little box where it's, like nice flowers growing in my inside, like my inner self. And sometimes it's just chaos. Sometimes it's just swirling. Sometimes it's just sadness or anger or whatever. And I think the work that I've been doing on that is when I'm sensing that, to just be with them, to sit down, to breathe, and just to allow those emotions to be. And whatever comes up, allow it to come up. If it's crying, if it's taking a nap, sometimes your body is just really processing emotions and you need to rest. Sometimes you need to shake some things out. I've been on a call with my coach, and he said, hey, can you like scream? Can you let some of this emotion out of you? And when I've been able to process it that way and be with it, it moves through a lot quicker. And when I've numbed, I realized it's still there on the surface. It's kind of just simmering. And so the next time that little wound gets triggered or something happens, it's ready to pass. It's like very present. And so for me, the practice and the work has, like I said, just been around being with it and noticing when I'm numbing and when I actually have the capacity and the energy to kind of be with them, just to acknowledge those emotions, those feelings, that it move through me, process it through my body, do whatever I need to do to kind of like shake it out and, get back along with my day.
Love it. John, I could talk to you all day.
Already? Are we done already? Oh my gosh.
Already. I know, it goes so fast. Before we go, I would love to see if you're willing to play a quick little game.
I would love to play a game. Let's play.
Okay. I want you to imagine an emotion that you have. Big or small, good or bad, positive or negative. Choose that emotion.
Okay.
And describe it for me.
Okay. I chose anger. And anger, the feeling I have in my body feels tense. It feels alert. Like I feel like I'm ready to fight. I think when I feel anger, I don't have the freeze or flight response. I have the fight response. Like I want to go at it. I want to have a conversation and sort of, not sort of, I want to just sort of like get at you and tell you how I'm feeling about it. But I often feel anger sort of at the top of my shoulders, on my back. I kind of have that like, tingly feeling, not in a good way, around there. And the kind of experience I have when there's anger is that I've been wronged, that someone's violated boundaries that I have set up, either verbally that I've articulated or not articulated to them. But there's some sort of like injury that happens sometimes with sadness. But for me, anger is really about there's something that needs to be addressed, that I've been wronged or I'm feeling wronged. And so there's a lot of that energy of making it right and telling someone, I'm not saying this is the right way to approach it, but telling someone that they violated something and that I'm not okay with it.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to choose anxiety. And for me, when I'm feeling anxiety, I often don't recognize it as anxiety. I feel lightheaded, like maybe I'm going to pass out. Sometimes I hear like a thwap sound, like a repeated like thwap, thwap, thwap in my head. That's almost like blood rushing through my head too fast. I notice that I feel like I need to move and I can't at the same time. And so I will be sitting still and like all of the parts of my body will be trying to jump through my skin. And I feel like a lump, not in my throat, but like below my throat, like at the top of my sternum, like just below my collarbone. That is like a mushy lump. Like it's not like a hard lump like I get in my throat when I'm going to cry, but it's just like this like blob of something not great, like dread almost. And if we're talking about that fight, flight, freeze, my reaction is actually fawn, which is the fourth one that's less talked about, which is like, what can I do? How can I help other people? What needs to be done around my apartment? What do I need to clean up? Right. And like that energy has to go somewhere. And like, I need to fix it. So if you're listening to this and you're a person who doesn't really spend a lot of time with your feelings, a good way to start getting in touch with them is to do that exercise, to try to describe a feeling that you have. And if you don't know how to even identify your feelings, there's a great thing. There's a great tool called the feelings wheel. That if you Google feelings wheel, it comes up in a bunch of different forms, but it goes through these like core feelings of happy and sad and angry. And it describes in an outward circle what those feelings can mean, the stronger that they get. And I use that all the time when I'm trying to identify my own emotions and my own feelings. Thanks for playing that game with me, John.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being with us again for another episode. We love being with you, being in community with you, and having conversations with you. And we'll see you next time.
We're so grateful you decided to be with us during this episode. Subscribe, rate, and share this podcast with your friends and colleagues. And join us next time for more Real Talk.